Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be in the midst of you all. My name is Olga Lasea and I'm the linguist from Jakarta, Indonesia. Here I will explain to you about the story of British accent. First of all, let me know how do my participant know about British accent? That's really good, ma'am. So you use your time to learn another language, another accent that's pretty cool, and I hope you will be encouraged soon. Maybe my participants here are learning for British accent, or maybe they are British accent speaker. So that's why I'm really glad to meet all of you. So now let me start our discussion. The origins of British accent. British English has always been a language of accents and dialect, and today the United Kingdom has among the highest level of accent diversity in the English-speaking world. But where did these dialects and accent originate? An old language, the rich variety of dialects in Britain can to a large extent be attributed to the fact that English has been spoken on this island for more than 1,500 years. This long-term period has allowed for the language to develop into regional varieties of English. If we compare Britain to Australia, where English has only been in use for about 230 years, there has not been sufficient time for dialects to develop to the same extent. The same can be said about the United States, where the language has been used for 400 years. However, it's not the time scale alone that explains this wealth of dialects. We also have to understand what happened to the language during those years, so we take a leap back to British history. The Anglo-Saxons bring English to England. Inventions and migration have to a great extent been a driving force in the development of dialects and accents in Britain. In the 5th century, Germanic tribes from the northwest of the European continent began settling on the island. The settlers consisted of three different peoples: the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes. Since the first two groups were the large, the settlers come to be known collectively as Anglo-Saxons. They all prove with the distinct dialects of the native Germanic language, the language we today call Anglo-Saxons or Old English. And then the Viking camp. Around 880, the first Viking arrived in British soil. Some of them were indeed the pirates and lobsterers of popular legend. However, most were farmers and traders who lived very similarly to the Anglo-Saxons. Within a short period of time, you could find permanent Viking settled in Scotland and England. In the areas where the Vikings settled, Old English would adopt linguistic features from Old Norse, which was the language of Vikings, and again new dialects would emerge. We still see traces of Old Norse in English, particularly in the dialects of Northern English, which is where many of the Vikings settled. For example, if you go to the York or Yorkfiks, as the Viking called the town, you will see that many of the streets in the city center have strangely recognizable names such as Swignate, Lefigate, and Stonegate. Also, in the English accent spoken in the north of England and part of Scotland, you can still find such as you still find such words as fell or mountain, late or sick, scully or bald, burn or child, bro or fantastic, kirk or church, and queen. for girl or woman. Next. The Normans changed the English language for good. In 1066, the French-speaking Normans invaded England. The French language, which was very different from Old English, became a language for the elite and for the ruling class. It was a language of respect and status. And for English speakers with ambition in life, it was necessary to learn French. English had low status among the ruling classes. And before long, the distinction between those who spoke French and those who spoke English was not ethnic but social. It was not until the 15th century that English again had become the most prestigious language variety in England. Perhaps with the expectation of Latin, the English language went through this drastic change during the Norman period. French words started seeping into the language, especially words associated with such things as government, law, art, and religion. But there were also language changed so much that by 1100 it could not longer be defined as Old English. It has developed into a new language, or we could say Middle English. Developing a standard written English language. We have to remember that the English language for a long time was mostly a spoken language. Few, few people knew how to read and write, and for those who did, spelling and grammar were not standardized. However, modern English spelling started developing from about 13 and 15 onwards, and it was passed on the English that was used in the 13th century, near the power base of the royal court and the administration in Westminster. During the next centuries, the language went through as an increasing standardization process. In 40 and 76, the first printing press was brought to England, and this speeded up the process. Spelling and grammar became fixed, resulting in a more uniform written language. The standard English we use today stemmed from this development from the 15th century. Also, it is the basis of the British accent we today refer to as received pronunciation. Dialects today. Today there are about 40 very distinct dialects in the United Kingdom. In many cases, they use different spelling and word structure, and there are also many local words. You may already have heard and about these dialects such as Cockney in London, Scots in Liverpool, Glaswegian in Glasgow, Geordie in Newcastle, Scottish in Scotland, and many others. All dialects that can be quite difficult to understand if you meet someone speaking very broadly. Other dialects, such as Brummie in Birmingham and Stuarty English in Sussex, may be easier to understand, but certainly they have their unique characteristic. RP or received pronunciation, also called BBC English, is probably the most recognizable dialect in Britain, and one that you are certain to have heard many times. It is often associated with people from the upper and upper middle classes and has traditionally been considered by many to be the most prestigious accent of British accent. Unlike other dialects and accents, this is not associating British English with the geographical areas, but with social class. Since the 1950s, there has been far greater social and geographical mobility, and more people have had access to an education and broadcast media. This has all impacted the British accent and dialects. There has also been a new wave of immigration, which has resulted in speakers bringing in new dialects and accents that have further enriched the linguistic landscape. This is true especially in the urban areas, where speakers from several Commonwealth countries have blended their mother tongue speech pattern with existing dialects, producing yet other varieties of English. There is still an incredible amount of regional diversity in the language spoken around the country today. Languages and dialects are extremely dynamic. They are always changing, develop, developing, evolving, and adapting to the needs of the users. And RP Modern Accent or Receive Pronunciation Accent or BBC English is the today accent that we usually use in everyday. Many Britain people use this accent because it's really easy to listen and it's like a common accent in there. So, ladies and gentlemen, it seems that anything from it in this part is not from our history because there is no present without the past. Cherish the past and organize the future. A journalist, Eduardo Galeano, once said, history never really says goodbye. History says, here we go. Thank you for your participation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.